Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win. We're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Today on the channel, we are taking a look at the Uliana Stratagem set armor for the Monk. This is the Season 24 starter set for the Monk for Diablo 3, which you get by completing Chapter 2, 3, and 4 of your Hadred's Gift, or your Seasonal Journey for that matter. Okay, Uliana Stratagem, 2-piece bonus. Every third hit of your spirit generators applies Exploding Palm. 4-piece bonus, your 7-sided strike deals 777% its total damage with each hit. All damage taken is reduced by 77% for 7 seconds after applying Exploding Palm to an enemy. 6-piece bonus, increase the damage of your Exploding Palm by 9,000% and your 7-sided strike detonates your Exploding Palm. So this is basically an Exploding Palm set. Alright, we're going to be using mostly a full set of Ulianas. However, we are going to be using also the Captain Crimson set, the belt and the feet. 2-piece bonus, 6,000 life per second, reduces cooldown of all skills by 20%, reduces all resource costs by 20%. 3-piece, damage dealt is increased by cooldown reduction, and damage taken is reduced by percentage of cost reduction. We're also going to be using the Shenlong Spirit set here. 2-piece bonus, the damage of your spirit generators is increased by 2% for each point of spirit you have. When reaching maximum spirit, all damage is increased by 350%, but you no longer passively regenerate spirit, and 65 spirit is drained every second until it runs out. We're going to be using Rondo's Locket as a placeholder thanks to our follower holding the Flavor of Time. We're going to be using Strong Arm Bracers. Again, my followers has Nemesis Bracers, that's why it's there. We're going to be using Conventional Elements and Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac for our rings. And let's bring up the primary skills. Way of the 100 Fist, 7-sided Strike, Sustained Attack, Epiphany, Desert Shroud, Dashing Strike, Blinding Speed, Cyclone Strike, Implosion, and Exploding Palm, Impending Doom, because it'll be cold damage. It's actually a really good skill to use here. For the passives, Beacon of Ytar, Harmony, Mythic Rhythm, and last but not least, Near-Death Experience. In the Kanai's Cube, you want the Flow of Eternity, Gundo Gear, and Ring of Royal Grandeur. That way you can get all the set-piece bonuses from that. This is what my Paragon looks like. In terms of the follower, honestly, all you're really going to need is a Broken Crown, a Flavor of Time, and a Nemesis Bracers. Everything else is just kind of filler, because there's not really anything else you really need. Goldskin is kind of decent. It's not the greatest. It's not the worst. Really, again, it's all about Broken Crown, Flavor of Time, and Nemesis Bracers. For the purpose of this showcase, we are going to do a greater of 65, 70, and 75. For the strategy of this armor, what you want to do is go Cyclone Strike. Then you're going to use your Way of the 100 Fists to basically apply the Exploding Palm markers. And then you will use your 7-sided Strike to cause the detonation, as you're going to see here. Those are your damage rotations. So you're always going to want to use your Cyclone Strike to pull in a large area of enemies towards you. Then you will use the Way of the 100 Fists to set the marker, as you see here. 7-sided Strike will be the detonator that causes the explosion to occur. And generally you want to do that near elite packs and large enemies, because you'll get a large massacre bonus as well as, obviously, the purple orbs that you need. So again, Cyclone Strike, Way of the 100 Fist, 7-sided Strike, everything detonates and implodes. Now keep in mind, you want a lot of enemies pulled in together, and you want them to all explode at the same time, because Exploding Palm basically works like an area of effect type of damage. Meaning that when it explodes, it's like an actual real-life explosion. It explodes, and then everything that's caught near it, and around it, and inside of it, it gets damaged during it. So that's why it's very important to pull everything in with Cyclone Strike, Way of the 100 Fist, and then 7-sided Strike to detonate. Always kind of try to bring elite packs in to whatever you're detonating. That way you can just get rid of them super fast. In terms of optimization, what would you be doing with this particular armor? Well, for starters, since we are using the Captain Crimson set, I would recommend getting cooldown reduction at least 8.0% wherever available, because as you know, with the Captain Crimson set, the more cooldown reduction you have, the more damage output you have. So get cooldown reduction 8.0% wherever available. Then I would recommend also getting cost reduction next. Cost reduction, same thing with Captain Crimson. The more cost reduction you have, the less damage, I should say, you will be taking, which is very, 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 very important. Last but not least, then I would move on to Earthings. Like, on your helm, I would recommend crit hit chance 6.0%. I would recommend on the gloves, crit hit chance 50%, crit hit hit damage 50%, crit hit chance 6.0%, and then an attack speed at least 7.0 to 8.0%. Those free stats on the gloves will give you a significant increase in damage. You, however, do not want to sacrifice cooldown reduction or cost reduction for those stats. So you might have to be relying heavily on RNG to get all those particular stats that you want on a particular piece of gear. Then from there, I would recommend powering up Way of the 100 Fist wherever possible without, again, sacrificing the other stats that I just mentioned, 15%. I would also recommend powering up the Exploding Palm technique by 15% because that's where your major source of damage is going to come from. You can, maybe, if you have room, also power up the 7-sided strike, but it's really about the Way of the 100 Fist and more so the Exploding Palm to be able to do the maximum amount of damage. So if you follow those particular pieces of advice that I gave you, you will be able to do optimal play with the Uliana Stratagem set. Now keep in mind that I mentioned this before, this is the starter set, this is the Hatred's Gift for Season 24 for the month. If you're new to Diablo 3 and you're not familiar with how the Hatred's Gift works, starting on Chapter 2 and ending on Chapter 4, every time you complete a seasonal journey objective for that chapter, so complete Chapter 2, and then Chapter 3, and then Chapter 4, on completion of every chapter, you will get a piece of the Hatred's Gift. So, again, when you complete Chapter 2, you will get 2 pieces of the Hatred's Gift. When you complete Chapter 3, you'll get another 2 pieces. When you complete Chapter 4, you'll get the final 2 pieces. You are always guaranteed a full set of the Hatred's Gift, which is the starter set for the month, which is this armor that you see here. You are not guaranteed it to be Ancient Legendary, and you certainly will not have a Primal Ancient Legendary version of it drop in the Hatred's Gift. The reason for that is in order to see Primal Ancient Legendaries drop in Diablo 3 seasonal characters, you would have to complete a Greater Rift 70 solo, which mathematically and theoretically is impossible to complete before your Chapter 4 seasonal journey is complete, where you have the full starter set, unless you got incredibly lucky very early on with RNG. Mathematically, the chances are like 1%. On top of that, it's really not in your benefit to try to get Primal Ancient Legendaries off of a Hatred's Gift cache. That's like a lot of time wasted that could be better spent. So that's my disclaimer about that. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, where exactly does Uliana Stratagem fare in terms of armors for the monk class in particular? Well, it's a mid-tier armor. It's not the worst armor in the game, and it's not the best armor in the game. My advice for people who are playing the monk as their character, as their seasonal character for Chapter 24, or not Chapter 24, but Season 24, is this. Use this set and this build till you get to about Torment 13, and if you can, even maybe Torment 16. However, if you see before Tournament 13 that you do have a full set of, let's say, the Patterns of Justice or the Monkey King's Garb set, I would personally switch to either of those particular builds. Now, if you need advice or a build for both of those sets, that being the Patterns of Justice set and the Monkey King's Garb, I haven't done the Season 24 revisits of them just yet. However, the Season 23 videos that I have available in my playlist, all the information for both those sets still applies because there were absolutely no changes to either of those set armors or the items and particular weapons that those sets use for their builds. So you could definitely check that out and kind of get a better understanding of exactly what you need in terms of that. Moving on, though, like I said, in tiers list, what you very well want to be going for is Patterns of Justice is S tier. Sunmuku is pretty much S tier, although it has its flaws. It has a 5-minute and 50-second clear time greater of 65, which is Torment 14 difficulty. This is not a speed build. Uliana just can't do speed builds because it's more like push build. Incentive, this is greater of 70. Same strategy as before. We're going to use Cyclone Strike to pull enemies in. Way the 100 Fist to put the Exploding Palm markers on a large targeted area. Then we go 7-sided strike, as you saw there, to implode. The implosion will take out a large area of enemies, and you will basically profit from that. Now, in terms of what Epiphany and Dashing Strike do on this particular set, they are here to kind of mitigate certain problems that arise. Epiphany in particular will help you take less damage because we're using the Desert Shroud Ruin. So it's here for when you see yourself getting into a rough situation or you feel like maybe you're not getting a lot of spirit back and you need maybe a very quick burst of attacks. It's also kind of good because when you click your primary resource attack with the 100 Fist and you're in Epiphany, you can actually teleport close to the mobs. Now, Dashing Strike in particular, how does that function? Dashing Strike in particular for this particular build is there to kind of get you out of a spot when you don't have Epiphany. It gives you a very quick dodge. It can also be used to kind of bridge the gap between you and enemies that are far away if you want to keep your Massacre bonus going. So it kind of gives you a little extra bit of mobility that you wouldn't normally have available to you had you not been running Dashing Strike. So that's where those particular skills function in terms of this build. You're going to kind of rely a bit more heavy on them when it comes to greater of 70 and 75 because that's when mobs have a lot more HP. They could deal a lot more damage to you, and they also kind of are a little bit more tanky in terms of their defense. But you're always going to do the same damage rotations of Cyclone Strike to pull a large area of mobs together, with 100 Fists to set the marker. Then we're going to go 7-sided Strike to detonate. As we detonate, you saw there we couldn't take out that area, but we'll take out the next area with our next 7-sided Strike, which takes out a long, wide range area. That's what you want to do. You never want to detonate with 7-sided Strike when there are no enemies near you. That's definitely something that you don't want to do. It's not very optimal. It's not big brain plays, as they would say. So definitely don't use your 7-sided Strike to implode for like one enemy. The only time you can actually really do that is when it's against the Rift Guardian. Excuse me. In terms of extra optimization, what would you want to do for this particular set? In terms of legendary gems we're talking about. My recommendation, you want to run a Bane of the Stricken because you're going to have to punch a lot of things with your way of the 100 Fists. So Bane of the Stricken works perfectly for that. Subsequently, you also want to use Bane of the Trap because Bane of the Trap will work very well with the Impending Doom Ruin for Exploding Palm. On top of that, when you level up the Bane of the Trap past level 25, it gets a built-in slow ability where it will proc slow, which can come in very, very handy, and it procs quite a bit when you're actually just doing your regular attacks, which will also come in very handy when you're trying to slow down some of the tankier mobs like the tankier Rift Guardians. So definitely do that. Now, how would you kind of get the pieces that you need for this particular build when you're just starting out your seasonal journey? Because you're not going to get Captain Crimson's right off the bat. Honest answer here, you're going to have to do a lot of bounties. That's the best way to get it. Captain Crimson has a chance of dropping from Goblin Caches as well as Tyrael Caches. So what you want to do is you want to do a lot of bounties, complete chapters 1 through 5, and keep running those. I would recommend keep running those for about an hour or two. You might get lucky and you might get the plans earlier than that, but keep running them. As you keep running them, you're gonna run into a lot of goblins, and then on top of running into a lot of goblins, you're just gonna get a lot of Tyrael's Caches. And, you know, by completing the bounties, on top of that, you're going to get a lot of Death Breaths, you're going to get a lot of Blood Shards that you're going to need, you're going to get a lot of the materials that you need in order to extract legendary powers for the Kanai's Cube. So it is in your benefit to just do a lot of bounties in the beginning of your seasonal journey, just so you can get the Captain Crimson plans. Because if you don't use Captain Crimson with the set, you're not going to be able to perform at maximum efficiency with Uliana. It's still manageable, but it's going to start struggling on greater 55 and 60 because this armor's just, it needs a little extra help, and that's where the Captain Crimson comes in to play. Subsequently, something else that you need to keep in mind is how are you going to get the Shenlong Fist? Well, there's a couple of ways you could get to that. My best recommendation, again, and this is one of these things where I always tell people, Diablo III is a marathon, it's not a race, so don't try to, like, race to get the best build right away, because there's no easy way to this. That was a 4-minute clear time on greater of 70. I know it passed by a little quick because I hit that B button too fast. Alright, greater of 75, same strategy. Cyclone Strike, pull all the enemies in. We have the 100 Fists to apply the marker. 7-sided Strike for the detonator. Make sure you're detonating with a lot of mobs on screen, so that way there's a wide AoE effect going off and you're not kind of wasting a 7-sided Strike. Because remember, 7-sided Strike needs to cool down. That's where legendary gems come in handy. I have a Goaka Swiftness. Some people prefer Simplicity Strength. I feel Goaka Swiftness is more important because you need to get your 7th strike as fast as the cooldown as possible. Now, again, going back to the Shenlong's Fist, my recommendation would be doing Greater Rifts, 2 to 3 hour run of it. Generally, you want to do a Greater Rift that you could pick where you could do it between 3 to 4 minute runs, preferably lower time is better in this particular situation. And what you would want to do is you would want to run, you know, about 2 hours of doing 2 to 3 minute Greater Rift runs, and you're almost guaranteed that you're going to see the Shenlong's Fist drop that way. And then from there, you can kind of like upgrade to Ancient Legendary if you need to, or reroll them, or whatever you want to do. But usually in a couple of runs of it, you're going to see at least one piece of Shenlong's Fist, because there aren't a lot of legendary fist weapons to begin with, and then there's certainly only one set armor legendary fist for this particular build. So definitely keep that in mind. Another route you could go, and I don't really recommend it because you're just wasting resources, is if you wanted to, you could buy a lot of fist weapons, the rare versions of them, from the blacksmith in town, whatever town you're in. And then what you would do is you would use the Kanai's Cube to upgrade the rare to a legendary or ancient legendary. The problem with this is you might see the Shenlong Fist, but you're going to spend a lot of gold and a lot of death breaths unless you're using like the Sage's set with the follower for the innate ability. You're probably going to be wasting more death breaths than you really should for that. You would preferably want to save those death breaths for better roll. It's more in your benefit to do the Greater Rift runs because you can level up legendary gems that you need to level up, and you're going to see better loot. I like to do 2 to 3 minute runs on Greater Rift 60 Tournament 13 difficulty, but again, it depends on how well you're doing in terms of pushing things where you feel comfortable. It's about your comfort zone, really. And you want to do more Greater Rift runs within 2 hours than doing a very long Greater Rift. Like, if it's taking you, let's say, 9 minutes to clear Greater Rift 60, based on whatever your stats are distributed on this armor, then it's probably not a good idea to do those type of runs. If you could do, like, let's say on Greater Rift 40, 2-minute clear times or 4-minute clear time, preferably 3-minute clear times, I'd say. It depends, again, you know. That's better, more optimal in terms of playstyle and whatnot. You know, this is Greater Rift 75. This is probably going to clock in at, like, a 6-minute clear time, and this is not fully optimized armor. By not fully optimized, I'm talking about that I don't have my set fully ancient legendary pieces and augmented with gems that are level 80 or higher. Obviously, you want to augment with higher gems. 100 is probably the best way to go. However, sometimes while you're Greater Rift grinding, you run into a wall, and that's why you gotta do, like, lower level gems. Remember, you can always overwrite a augmentation of a piece of armor. The only problem is, obviously, you wasted a gem, but sometimes you need, again, Diablo III is a marathon, not a race. In terms with Uliana, again, I said it's a mid-tier armor. Your best bet, really, is that you use this until you see the Parents of Justice pieces drop, and when you have the full set of that, switch out. The added benefit is because you're using already Captain Crimson pieces, you could use Captain Crimson in conjunction with Parents of Justice, and you could do well. For those of you who need to see things on paper, and that's perfectly fine because some people don't work well with just visual videos and visual guides, I will provide a sample armor set for the Uliana Stratagem in the description, so definitely take a peep out at that. I'll link you to Icy Veins, a very good resource for Diablo III builds. Okay, subsequently, oh, that's actually a good point to put here. With the Uliana set, don't stress it if after you get to Tournament 16, you don't always get a 4-chance bonus, because remember, this armor is tanky, but as mobs get higher up, it's going to start struggling. Uliana Stratagem set, when fully optimized, is probably going to peak and only be able to push up until about Greater Rift 125 to 130. 130 is probably based on very skilled Diablo 3 players that know exactly what they're doing, and they know how to attack things, and they know how to elite pack farm, and they know how to dodge and move out of the way. It's going to struggle. This is not going to complete a Greater Rift 150 solo. This armor's not built that way, and the amount of investments that you would have to try to accomplish to be able to try to take on Greater Rift 150 could be used, honestly, on better builds like Parents of Justice or even the Sun Wuku set Tempest Rush build. So keep that in mind. Mid-tier armor. It will get you pretty far to at least Tournament 13 on optimized. But then from there, it's a question of, is it really worth spending more resources to take the armor further when there are just such better options available to monk players? And the answer to that is At least in my opinion, no. Alright, so we're closing in on the Greater Rift here. We're going to pull things in with Cyclone Strike with 100 Fist. I will talk briefly about what's coming up next on the channel here. Since this is the last starter build that I had to cover for all the classes for Diablo 3, starting next week, which will be Monday, we will be tackling on S-tier armors that are great at getting you super high leaderboard placement and getting you your seasonal journey completely completed the fastest possible. We'll start with the Demon Hunter S-tier armor, which is the Gears of Dreadland. We'll move on from there to the Mundunugu set, and then from there we'll probably move on to Whirlwind Barbarian. The following week we'll move on to then Valor Satyr and see how well that is doing after the nerfs that it received. We'll also then probably cover the Masquerade of the Burning Carnival. We'll also then cover most likely the Ina set because that just recently got buffed and nerfed. When you get the tanky Rift Guardians, it's a matter of just really using Ray of the 100 Fists in conjunction with Bane and Stricken Bane and Trap to slow it down. And then 7-sided Strike when possible. Again, don't get stressed out if you take some deaths here, because again, this is not a very powerful armor that can do things that Earthings and better set armors can do on Greater Rift 75 and Torment 16 plus difficulty going forward. This is probably going to be like a 6-minute clear time if I had to take a educated guess as to how well we did. Now, subsequently, like I said, we're going to be covering a lot of S-tier builds next, because I know that's what people probably are going to want to see after I cover the starter sets. Then from there, after I get covered all the S-tier armors, we're going to move. I was kind of fortunate in the sense that actually 2 of the starter sets this season are kind of S-tier class in a way. Or actually it was just one. Chanteau de Mir's S-class. So we kind of already killed 2 birds with 1 stone. But yeah, we'll cover all the S-tier builds first. Then from there, I like to do is go into comments, even from previous seasons, and see what people would like for me to take a look at that maybe I haven't taken a look at or not given as much love to. And then we will cover those particular builds, because I like to do a couple of viewer-requested builds on the channel. In terms of upcoming content in September, Diablo 2 Resurrected is just coming out in the end of September. We will be covering Diablo 2 Resurrected on this channel. I'm still not sure if I'm going to play it on PC or if I'm going to play on Switch. This is being played on the Nintendo Switch platform because I like playing offline. It gives me a lot more things I can do, like I can watch TV in Diablo 3 grind. I can't really do that as well or effectively, obviously, on PC, because I have to pay more attention to the PC as opposed to I can just kind of casually do both on Nintendo Switch. So I'm leaning towards the Nintendo Switch platform for Resurrected. Keep in mind, all information applies to all platforms. There's no difference. It works exactly the same. The only difference between mouse and keyboard is they have more precision in terms of the twists and turns and their clicking and everything of the sort. So they have a bit more accuracy compared to, obviously, a analog stick and whatnot. But again, this is my personal preference as to how I like to play Diablo, and as you can see, it works rather well. Alright, so let's see what exactly the clear time was here. I think like 6 minutes, probably. Alright, 6 minutes and 37-second clear time. Only 3 augmentations on this particular build, so that's actually pretty well. With more optimization, although I question why you would really go through the hassle, you could probably get the clear time down, full optimized, 2-minute clear time if you wanted to. Let's salvage this stuff and repair, and I'm going to bid you guys a fond farewell after I see if maybe we got an Ancient Legendary, or Primal Ancient Legendary to drop for that matter. Alright, so we got a couple set armor pieces. I don't think I saw any red, though, when the Rift Guardian gave us his drops, so that might be quite unfortunate indeed. Poor unfortunate souls that we are. Alright, letter speaker opener. Okay, oh, I found a Sunwuku's crown, so let's go Sunwuku's crown. Okay, no, I didn't get anything good loot here. So we're gonna salvage these. Let me compare gloves. No, the glove I have is better at the moment. Alright, let's salvage. I might keep that Gundo gear to compare it to one of the ones I have in my chest offline. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's Diablo 3 video. As always, a like is greatly appreciated on this video. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, consider doing so, as it helps the channel grow. And I will see you for the next Diablo 3 video. Till next time.